Okay, next up is Wendy Hammond. Wendy, please join me on the red carpet.
Hello.
Wait, you have to make that, yes, do a little swishy. That's too good not to swish. All right, Wendy, let's tell people about your book, Leaving the Castle. Although I don't want her to leave the castle. Not this one.
Not this one. My book, Leaving the Castle, is actually written for women who are considering leaving their marriage. It's really hard, I find, for myself and for the clients, I'm a psychotherapist, to actually make a rational judgment and plan to leave without changing things under the surface, the unconscious. And what I find is this book that I've written is written through the lens of myths and fairy tales. And they do a beautiful and peculiar job of speaking to the unconscious, bringing up things that are eternal, actually. I mean, these are the struggles we have, which seem so contemporary and right now, are struggles that people have been having forever, really. And I think myths and fairy tales help us to step away from our personal narrative of, I want to do this, but I can't. Well, but this is true, but so is this. And it helps us get a better overview. So it's written for women who are considering leaving their marriage.
And so what are some of the fairy tales? You sort of retell fairy tales in this book. What are some of the ones that you included?
I included Sleeping Beauty and Bluebeard, and I used the Judgment of Paris from Greek mythology and the ensuing aftermath of that and the trips that people took afterwards. So.
And was there something that you were looking for in picking these fairy tales? Was there there are lots of ways you could talk about leaving your marriage, but why do you think going in through this way?
Well, I think there were so many stages of kind of coming to the knowing that something's not right. And I find we kind of tamper that down a lot. And of course, society corrals us in a certain way. And so for me, Sleeping Beauty spoke to that time that we kind of go inside ourselves. And then we need the energy, which I call them the masculine energy, the prince coming in. A lot of people think, oh, Sleeping Beauty, it's all about waiting for some man to rescue you, but it's not. It's your own kind of masculine drive for energy. So it kind of, when I was thinking about what happens when we make decisions, big decisions and change, they just kind of came to me, actually, as I was thinking, okay, so then that happens, and then this is the next part, what we have to kind of battle within ourselves, and it's a lot about making judgments about what your priorities are, and then, of course, the Judgment of Paris came to me, and then, we had to talk about the not so great, not the princes, but the villains along the way, and Bluebeard is a fabulous villain. He's fairly grisly, though, but yeah.
I'll take a grisly villain. So I think that one of the things about Leaving the Castle, again, you can see that on the page and download it right now. But one of the things that's so interesting about that book is that even if you're not thinking about a divorce, the structure of the book and the way of looking at fairy tales, I think translates like beyond just the divorce message.
It really does. I feel like it gives a whole new language and a new way to articulate what's going on inside of us, because it's not just what happens as we're deciding to leave a marriage. It's what happens if we're deciding to leave a job or just make a big change in our lives. There's so much that goes on underneath. And I think one of the things that got me rolling on this when I wrote my master's dissertation quite some time ago, I wanted to understand what allowed people to take risks and to step out of the life that they had been living for so long. And I thought that I'd chosen like a really slender time in somebody's life to look at. But what happens is you have all of these rotations to lead up to it. And then you get to this point and you step over that barrier and you think, why didn't I do this before? But actually all of those spirals leading up to that point allowed you to do it. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to do with this book, to say, you know what, it may be taking you longer, you may be frustrated, you may be asking yourself, why haven't I done this already? But things are happening. I can promise you, you are building a bridge out, truly.
All right, last question for you is, how does that relate to the book writing process? What lesson could you give us from mythology or folk tales, or that you used?
A journey. And I have been wanting to do this forever. And I really thought, I have done research on this. I've spoken to so many clients, and I've seen this sort of pulse that goes on underneath things. And I'm so ready to write this book. I've been obsessed with fairy tales and myths for decades. This is going to be pretty easy, to be honest with you, but it wasn't. And it was a real battle, and I'm just so grateful for the coaching I received to get through it. But it was a battle, and there was lots going on inside that I was really surprised at.
Did you tap into myths? Did you think about how that?
I did. I mean, as I was reading through, I was concentrating on these 3 stories that I told, but there are other stories as well where things just seem absolutely impossible for my next book. But I did have to tap into them just to find metaphors and heroes to bring up from my unconscious, because there were times where I thought, oh my gosh, this is much harder than I expected, but I wasn't going to quit either. So
there were moments.
There were moments.
But we knew you'd get here. And the lesson I want you guys to take away from that is that your book is also one of your teachers. And you'll hear threaded through people's stories how exactly what they were writing about was exactly what was happening for them.
I was so sleepy during the writing of Sleeping Beauty. I could barely keep my eyes awake.
Oh my God, I love that.
So funny. And the moment that chapter was handed off, I was so perky again. It's really true. It's bizarre the way it went through. So
it's your teacher. Well, Wendy Hammond, the author of Leaving the Castle, you can go ahead and get your free copy of that right now. Wendy, thank you for being here. I want to see you swoosh your fuchsia one more time. Yes. Beautiful. It's an amazing dress.